We are live, guys. We are live. Welcome, Facebook. Welcome to House Then the Cars Super Series Tuesday. Now, I'm left with my leftover background from my previous live today, so I don't have my happy birthday background up. But I do want Facebook to know it is still our birth month, and we are still celebrating like it's 1999. Isn't that right, Stephanie?
That is correct. We're still celebrating House in the Cars birthday. We are 1 year old, and our official birthday is what
The
day?
26th?
26. That would be Monday.
That was yesterday, Stephanie.
Yeah, Monday. That was Monday.
You are a day late to our birthday. For those of you that do not know, my name is Letitia Grant. I am the national chair of House in the Car.
I am Stephanie Milburn. I'm the campaign manager for House in the Car. Welcome to our Super Series Tuesday.
Good deal. And today, so I'm so excited. I'm still excited. I have my leftover background, my leftover excitement from today's national conversation with NARAB. And today, I'm so excited to announce that we're hosting Politics of Home Ownership. And let's hear from NatPAC 1947. And what a better time to have this segment during election time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have some very special guests with us today. We have the chair and the co-chair of NatPAC 47, and I would like to introduce them. That would be Mr. Guy Allen and Ms. Kimberly Barnes Henson. I'm going to give you some little background information about both of these people. So today we have, of course, Mr. Guy Allen. Guy has been in real estate and mortgage business for over 40 years. So we're bringing you a lot of knowledge, guys. So over 40 years of knowledge. He had the experience of being the sole proprietor of his own mortgage and real estate companies and as an area manager of successful mortgage banking company. Mr. Allen has supervised offices throughout the tri-state area as well as other regions in the country. His experience in the mortgage banking field, coupled with his knowledge of real estate industry, has afforded him a unique opportunity of being well-rounded in both industries. In addition to training mortgage loan officers for over 33 years, Mr. Allen has been educating real estate agents in his firm, One Stop Real Estate School, for 15 years. Guy is currently the designated manager for eXp Realty in Woodbridge, Virginia, an international real estate company. He and his team have been achieving award-winning results in regions that covers the entire state of Virginia and its 750 agents and brokers. Mr. Allen received the Manager of the Year Award, $1 Million, and Top Producer Awards in all preceding years. He has taught principles of real estate and the broker pre-licensing courses for Virginia. In addition, possesses over 20 plus years of experience as an REO broker. He has sold properties for Freddie Mac, Indy Mac, Single Source Properties, Keystone Best, and Nations REO, as well as all of the major U.S. banks, listing and selling residential and commercial real estate. So guys, give a hand, virtual hand for Mr. Guy Allen.
Thank you.
Welcome to the virtual stage.
Thank you.
And without further ado, I have Madam Kimberly Barnes Henson with us today. And Madam Barnes is a real estate professional with over 24 years experience. She has a wonderful husband, Kenneth, of 12 years, also a daughter, LaShondria, and a son, Jeremiah, whom she adores. Real estate is Kim's passion, and the diversity of her education and experience in the industry allows her to successfully help others obtain their goals of buying, selling, or leasing real estate. So much so that her trademark is everything I touch turns to sold. Kimberly has worked in multiple roles within the industry, including real estate broker, general contractor, notary signing agent, property tax consultant, mortgage broker, Texas property tax arbitrator, property preservation, and financial consultant. As the broker owner of KBH Signature Realty Group, Kimberly has added innovative real estate strategies, developed new approaches to real estate marketing and client interaction, and has increased brand visibility and overall business. Kimberly maintains affiliations with multiple industry organizations, one being the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which is NAREB, and parent organization for the largest local chapter, Houston Black Real Estate Association, affectionately known to us in the Houston area as HBREA, where she is the immediate past president. Kim's also the first vice president of the Texas Association of Real Estate Brokers, board of director for National Association of Realtors, assistant treasurer of NAPAC 1947, and on the advisory council for the Greater Houston Builders Association Committee. Due to an earnest desire to promote real estate industry while improving the communities she served, Kimberly is a mentor. I'm sorry, I'm moving things around over here. Kimberly is a mentor to real estate agents and advocate for veterans and minorities in need of affordable and sustainable housing. In pursuit of excellent service through continued education, Kimberly has earned a number of real estate certifications and designations, including military housing specialist, broker, price opinion resource professional, certified probate real estate specialist, foreclosure specialist, accredited luxury home specialist, and many, many, many more. So again, welcome to the virtual stage, Madam Kimberly Barnes Henson and Mr. Guy Allen. So we do have some special guests, some other special guests with us today, and I'll let Letitia tell you a little bit about them.
So when you're talking politics and policy, NAPAC 1947, and how it affects us as a community, there are two people that you cannot leave behind. And that first person is Mr. James Prevet, who actually works with us in the national office on policy and how the policy affects us with NAREB. Mr. James Prevet.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's really a great opportunity to really discuss the issues, and I can't wait for it.
Yes. And in addition to that, we also have Miss Ty Christensen of Shanoa Fund. And it's so funny, when I read your bio, it had a different company on there. And I'm like, wait, I thought she worked for Shanoa. But come to find out, it's Shanoa's parent organization. So thank you so much, Ty. It's always a pleasure to have you here. You've joined us on the virtual platform before, but I want you to bring greetings today from Shanoa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Anything from Shanoa that you want to share with us? Anything that you're working on there?
Well, as you know, as our participants probably don't know, I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Shanoa, so I work internally with their housing policy. I travel to DC quite a bit to work with Congress on housing policy and ensuring that down payment assistance is available nationwide. And that's what our company does. We give down payment assistance on a nationwide basis. We also have a housing initiative called UHousey, which specifically markets to the Black American community to increase home ownership within our communities of color.
I'm so glad that you said that, because even though down payment assistance is common knowledge and common terms to us, what people don't understand is it can be on the table to be off the table.
So, oh yes, it is not a guarantee, and there's several policies in place right now to try to limit down payment assistance, limit it to be jurisdictional, which means you can only get it from a state provider. And where we offer it nationally, we bring competition to the market, which actually lowers the prices for consumers. So it's very important, and down payment assistance is out there and available for you if you are in need.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ty. We really appreciate it. Definitely appreciate having you. Well, guys, let's talk NAREB. And Guy, let's use this time to kind of establish an understanding of NAREB as an organization and why we even exist.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I found out about NAREB in 1977 when I was just a young lad, trying to make some ends meet with real estate sales. But I want to give you a background of the history of NAREB and its affiliates, or NAREB. The National Association of Real Estate Brokers, NAREB, was founded in Tampa, Florida, back in 1947 as an equal opportunity and civil rights advocacy organization for African-American real estate professionals, consumers, and communities in America. The purpose of NAREB is to enhance the economic improvement of its members, the community at large, and the minority community which it serves, and to unite those engaged in the recognized branches of the real estate industry, including brokerage, management, mortgage financing, appraising, land development, home building, and allied fields for the purpose of exerting influence on the real estate interests, as a whole. Although composed principally of African Americans, the Realtists, which we are known as the Realtists organization, embraces all qualified real estate practitioners who are committed to achieving our vision, which is democracy in housing. So that's basically a brief overview of who NAREB is.
Right. And God, NAREB has, or NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, has such a rich history, and so rich. Let's talk about the participation in the signing of the Fair Housing Act.
You know, this adage goes back for as long as I can remember. They said, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were there and we were involved in all of the details, or a lot of the details that were put forth in that act. And we know that we can't have anybody else write the things for us that we need to have in our communities. We have to be there so they can understand what our needs are. So a lot of what you see in that bill, basically, our members were there. So just take a look at it. I wasn't looking over the shoulders of the folks that were putting it together, but they were there. We were at the table, and we actually had an opportunity to help with a lot of the decision making that went into that bill.
Right. And I was listening to the radio the other day, and they were speaking about just that. You know, who better to talk about the issues other than the people that are experiencing the problem.
Exactly.
So along with that, so just in case for the audience that may be checking us out for the first time, NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, is actually the organization that is in charge of, or that is the reason for Housed in the Car. Although Housed in the Car is one of the campaigns, because we call ourselves a campaign, not an initiative, we put a little twist on it. NAREB actually has other things that they're involved in. And one of those other things is NATPAC 1947. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the term NATPAC, Kim, Madam Barnes, let's talk about what that means. What is NATPAC 1947?
Thank you so much. I first of all just have to say happy birthday, Housed in the Car. I am so excited about what you guys have accomplished in your first year. But guess what, Tish? It is also 1 year for NATPAC.
We're twins. We're initiative twins.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys, NATPAC 1947 is the National Political Action Committee formed by Realtists. And Realtists, for those of you who do not know, is a trade name for those real estate professionals who are members of NAREB. Mm-hmm. And so Realtists formed NATPAC 1947, but we are open to all real estate professionals and individuals that believe in democracy and housing. Now, NATPAC 1947 was formed to support policy that would help to increase the Black home ownership rate and close the wealth gap. So that is our mission.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Kim. You know, for our millennial audience, because of course Housed in the Car's mission is to transition more African-American millennials into home ownership. And Stephanie and I have talked and researched, and we know that millennials have a great passion to support cause versus maybe supporting organization. So NATPAC is one of those things that is a true cause.
It absolutely is. Mm-hmm. And we need to support NATPAC, because for you, your goal and the goal of NAREB as a whole to increase Black home ownership, we've got to have some policy to help enforce that. Now, you guys brought up the Fair Housing Act of 1968, but we are actually lower in number than we were when that act was passed. 2 years ago, that act was passed, we were at 50% home ownership rate. Thank God we've moved up to 47%, but it's going to take policy to actually change those numbers. So for both House in the Car, NAREB, all of us coming together and standing behind those politicians to push the policies that we need in order to increase the Black home ownership rate.
Right. And although we're going to do this a couple of times today during this segment, Kim, can you tell them, the audience, if they're ready to make a donation, where would they need to go to make a donation to NatPac 1947?
Now you're talking, because you know,
I wasn't expecting it.
everybody has gone out to vote, right? Early voting in our area is just crazy, but you guys, you've got to put your money where your vote is, because it's not enough. As you guys know, that it takes money behind those politicians who are trying to push our policies across the floor. And right now, NatPac 1947 has endorsed many of those politicians that are standing behind or pushing policy that will increase the Black home ownership rate and close the wealth gap. So please donate to NatPac and help us. NatPac1947.com. And right now we are running a actual campaign, $19.47. I mean, come on, guys. Everybody can donate $19.47. And we're asking that you do it. Put it on a monthly. Do it every month. $19.47. That's going to help us go a long way. NatPac1947.com.
Good deal. Okay, that sounds like a plan, guys. And we'll talk about it again later on before we conclude today. But you mentioned it a couple of times. We talked about it in the first question, but let's talk a little bit more about the Fair Housing Act of 1968. And this may be something for James. James, what was the intention of that act? What groups were covered? And what's the impact of the act today?
Sure. So again, thank you for the question. Thank you for having me. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 was to basically put into place policies that don't allow discrimination based on sex, religion, familial status, race, basically making sure that we expand opportunity for fair housing in both the rental market and the home ownership market. Just want to make sure that everyone has access to safe, affordable, and quality housing, essentially.
And what impact has that act played on home ownership, and specifically African American home ownership today? Because so often we kind of get become a part of the cluster, and in lieu of it being specifically identified to directly support and impact African Americans, we just kind of get grouped. How has that act actually impacted African American home ownership?
Well, I mean, you have practices that some people in the real estate market back then just did in our communities that are now illegal. Case in point, it was housing covenants. Basically, communities will come together, and white communities will come together and make homeowners sign documents that say, I will not sell my home to a Black home buyer. This act make that practice illegal. So that's just one example. And that allowed, again, more people to have access to purchase a home.
Yeah.
Let me add something to that.
Okay, guy, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the other things that ACT has helped is with us being able to get programs that made purchasing a home more affordable. Before FHA came along, and Freddie and Fannie, you had to put down, a lot of money to buy a house. For people to save, 50,000 or 50% of the house purchase to put down, it was just almost impossible. But with programs like FHA and VA coming into play, then a veteran could come in with zero down and purchase a house, especially after he's been overseas fighting our wars for us. FHA, you can come in with 3.5%, and buy a house. 3.5% on a $200,000, $300,000 house back then was a lot of money. And it's even more now on a $400,000 to $500,000 house. So having those programs in place were very, very important. I just wanted to dovetail that to James.
I could even add on that. Me personally, my grandfather, he served in World War II. He left the Army in 1945, but he didn't get his first house until 1958. So it took 13 years for him to, as a GI, he didn't have access to the GI bills that his white counterparts had. And he traveled around the country trying to find that opportunity, and he finally led it in DC in 1958. So it took 13 years. So you had a lot of other veterans and other Black communities that had that same kind of story. So just want to tie that together.
You know, what I wanted to kind of just draw to the attention is having a law is great, because there are several things are illegal. So it's illegal to discriminate, but then there's a second component to it, and it's enforcing the law. So although after 1968, it's illegal to discriminate against the items or the areas that James mentioned, now we have to talk about enforcement. And Ty, how difficult is it to enforce or to ensure that people aren't violating the laws, and what should just be common right to everyone?
Well, and let's take a step back for a minute here, right? We're in election season. Obviously, the big day is next week. And we hear all these commercials all the time: vote, 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 vote. Every time you go on Facebook, have you registered to vote? Every time you go on Twitter, did you vote? People are really pushing us to vote at this point because we are picking not just our federal leaders, but our state, our county, and our city officials. And our state, county, and city officials are the officials that have a direct impact on following through with these laws, with these policies, and these procedures. And it's incumbent upon us as American citizens to not just hold these folks accountable on election day, but the days and the weeks and the months after, hold their feet to the fire to say that to make sure that they are going to do what they have promised us that we're going to do. So I have three things that I always tell, especially young people who are very active and engaged and they want to get involved and they want to make sure that policy works for them. There's three major things you can do. Number one, contact your state, local, and county officials on a regular basis if you see any irregularities, or furthermore, you don't see the policies coming to fruition that they were stumping about. You know, if they're stumping about changing appraisal values in your neighborhood in previously redline neighborhoods to match the appraisal values in the comparative white neighborhoods, and they've been in office for a few months and you haven't seen any adjustments, then reach out. Every state, city, and local official has emails on their website that you can email them, and they are incumbent to email you back with policies and procedures to your questions. So number one, contact them on a regular basis. Number two, keep engaged. So there's a website called votesmart.org. It's a bipartisan website. It lays out all of the policy and the votes that our city and county and state officials have made, so you can make sure that they are voting in line with what they said they were going to vote in line for. Again, that's votesmart.org. And finally, this may seem like kind of a no-brainer, but make social media work for you. A lot of these state officials have 200 and 300 followers on Twitter. That's it. So if you tweet at them, they're going to get your mention. And if your video or your post goes viral, well, all of a sudden the policy issue that wasn't that big of an issue yesterday is now a big issue if it's starting to trend. So use the power of social media. Get people to retweet your posts that are important to you and your local city, and get your officials engaged.
Good deal. Yeah,
I'm glad that you mentioned, the state and the local officials, because a friend of mine was saying that he wasn't going to vote. And of course, in his mind, he was just thinking about the national election. And I said, well, you have issues in your community that you need to vote on. So make sure that you're voting for that reason, not just for a national president, but you want to vote for what's going on in your community. That's where you're going to see the most change.
100%. And I feel like this is lost, especially on a lot of folks of color. You know, we may be disenfranchised with Donald Trump. We may not be very excited about Joe Biden. Okay, that's fine. I respect your policies and your opinions in both of those frames. But the bottom line is your immediate tax dollars, whether it's your W-2 wages or your property taxes, their first stop before they get to the government is your local city outside your front door. So you need to pay attention to who's running for mayor. You need to pay attention to who's running for your state legislation. You need to pay attention who you're signing up for to be your school treasurer. These are really important things that affect you and your children every single day. And, you know, while Donald Trump is out there being Donald Trump and Joe Biden's being Joe Biden, bless them both, we really need to pay attention to our local officials because they make immediate decisions that affect our friends and our family and our children.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, I've heard someone say, you know, that they're not impressed with either. And my next question was, did you vote during primaries? Because maybe had you showed up during primaries, you could have influenced the person that you would have felt would have been a better candidate. But if you didn't do that, then, you know, let's try to make it right. We had judges on the ballot. We have all kinds of people on the ballot. You know, look at the whole ballot. And it's votesmart.org.
Votesmart.org.
Perfect, perfect. Well, guys, let's talk politics. So we were on the national conversation today, and we did hear that African-American home ownership rate did drop. Sorry, my light went off. It did drop to 46.5% from our 47. Now, 47 is the highest that it's been all year. But even understanding that, the distance between African-American home ownership and our counterparts, it's such a great disparity, unfortunately. And then not to mention, as Kimberly stated, it's even lower today than what it was when we passed the act. And of course, everyone, I'm sure during that time thought passing that would increase home ownership. But at this time, here we are. Let's talk about what happens with passing of the wrong bill. I think Kim's telling me she can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
So let's talk about what can happen if the wrong bill is passed. If you don't show up and the wrong bill is passed, like what type of an impact could that have on African-American home ownership?
Man, it can have such a huge impact. You guys, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And who's been affected by the pandemic? So already decisions that are being made currently as far as policy are having a disparate impact on people of color. And so not being at the table, I think Guy said it best, is that if you're not at the table, you're on the table, right? And so looking at the fact that the wrong policies being passed will certainly have a negative impact. We're already seeing the impact of the pandemic and the drop of the Black home ownership rate. I am fearful that we will only see that continue as we advance through this COVID crisis that we're in. So now more than ever, we have to make sure that our voices are being heard as policy decisions are being made, because we have to put some stopgaps in place to this slide that's happening from the pandemic. So yeah, it's very important that we're at the table.
Yeah. You know, Ty, what can we do? Because oftentimes, and I understand we talk about it all the time, it's a disparity, right? Here we are, we're sitting here, our rate is dropping. It's not just because we don't want to own homes, but for those of us that we call that have made it, what can we do to help our neighbors? What information do we need to be passing to our community so that we can see a true increase? And I don't mean an increase to 47%. I need to see us over that 50% home.
Well, I think it starts at a familial level. So in my family, home ownership goes back to 1865. Right after the Emancipation Proclamation, my great-great-great-grandfather bought a home, and he became obsessed with amassing property. When he died, he had 50 acres of land in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and he'd left a home to each one of his 8 children. And so from that one decision, every generation later, it has been incumbent upon us to become homeowners. My parents talked about home ownership as we were little. We were expected to grow up and go to college and buy a home. And after meeting several of my friends and going to college and the like, that's not a conversation a lot of parents are having with their children. They're not sitting them down and talking about finances. They're not talking about property taxes. They're not talking about taxes in general. These were conversations that we had all the time as I was growing up, and my cousins as well. And so I feel like it is incumbent upon us as Black and Brown folks to really instill in our children and our friends and our neighbors the importance of being homeowners, the importance of passing on of equity, and the importance of making smart decisions with that equity. You know, we can do a lot of ranting and raving and, oh, this should change, that should change, this should change. But unless we are going to put, to your point, Kimberly, our dollars where our mouth is, it matters not. So we need to really be instilling in our children and our grandchildren and our friends that homeownership is step number one to acquiring wealth for your family and turning the page on this racial disparity in the wealth gap.
So that's one of the reasons that I love how we started this series. We started with the Men in the Mirror. Make That Change is the series title. We started with the Men in the Mirror, then we moved to the family, then we moved to the community. And let me just stop there at community before we go to the national level. James, for an organization such as NAREB, let's kind of talk about some of the things that NAREB can, has, and will continue to do to fight for democracy in housing.
Sure. I think our biggest thing right now is the Realtist Political Liaison Program that we have. As you know, our membership is in more than 35 different states all over across the country, and that's over 35 different state legislatures that we can have a real impact on, and making sure that we have a good communication network between the national office and the state office is definitely critical. So like say you have a senator, they listen to their state senators and their state representatives as well. So if we can make an impact at the state house and state legislature, that helps the national office really be able to advocate on the national level as well. So we've got to think of it more as a bottom up as opposed to a top down type of approach. So that's what that Realtist Political Liaison Program comes into play. It allows us to get engaged with the mayor's offices, state house, and the state senate offices as well.
Right. And so then that takes us to where we are today, which is on the national level. So nationally, which is why NatPAC 1947 is here on our virtual platform today. You start with the you move into your house, you take it out to your community, and then now it's on the national platform. And at the end of the day, national, it's policy here. Now we're no longer talking about teaching little Kim how to save $2 from her $10 allowance. We're no longer doing that here. Now we're talking about policy that directly impacts our home ownership rate. And unfortunately, it seems as though the policy is not working towards our benefit because our rate, it may go up slightly and it's just staying stagnant. So Kim and Guy, let's talk about some of the things that on a national platform, what NatPAC 1947 is about doing. And once again, go ahead and give them the site to donate.
Okay. One thing I want to mention that we had not mentioned is that NAREB pushed a policy, American Home Dream Act. And that policy is similar to I think the 529 for colleges savings plan, where families can actually begin to save for their down payment. That is one policy that NatPAC is truly advocating for and pushing and raising funds to help get across the floor so that is approved. That is going to be a significant help to African Americans in purchasing their home. So when we look at it, NatPAC 1947, our website for donations, natpac1947.com. You guys remember that it is imperative that we support the policies that we want to see happening in our community so that we can see the change that we need. We need to change the narrative. As Letitia said, the African-American home ownership rate, we're tired of not even being able to get back to where we were when they passed the Fair Lending Act of 50% Black home ownership. We're ready to run across that threshold, and we can't do it without you and without your participation, supporting organizations such as NatPAC 1947 And you can do that by donating at natpac1947.com. We're running a campaign right now that's $19.47. Everybody can do that. And you can put it on a monthly basis so that you are, you know, what do they say? Fix it and forget it, right?
Set it and forget it. That's my favorite commercial.
Yes. and so please, if you guys will, natpac1947.com. I don't know, Letitia, if you can put it in on the screen somewhere so that people can see that, that would be really good. And
It's in the chat. We have it in the chat.
wonderful.
Great. I'd like to add a couple of things there too. You know, Kim has said it all. She's so zealous in making these things work for us, and she's excited about it. And I get excited just listening to her. But I think one of the big things is just education, just educating folks about the things that are going on these platforms. A lot of people don't know about the things that House in the Car talks about in their sessions. And I think probably, Letitia, what I need to do is do a jingle for NetPAC 1947, like the one we did for House in the Car, because people remember the music, and that's kind of that's another whole thing. But
you're right. So, and Stephanie says it all the time. With our particular group, we have to what, Stephanie?
Well, it's about the education, but we got to meet them where they are.
Where they are, right?
So, and if the jingle is what it takes, God, we will jingle everything. You see online, all of these teachers, they're now teachers turned rappers. It's because it's what reaches the students. End of the day, it's whatever works. We have to meet them where they are.
And I'm shocked that you didn't play the jingle before this.
I know. I should have. I'm gonna post it.
Right. So the big thing here is, as we've been repeating it over and over, look, it takes money. You know, these campaigns and these politicians, they can't get a platform if they don't have the money to support them and get out to the people and educate them as to what it is that they're trying to do. And if you're just sitting at home watching TV shows and you may swing past CNN after it's done, you know, and hear what's already happening, then you're not really a part of the solution. You're just kind of having to deal with what's already happened. So you want to get in and start being a part of the solution. And the only way you can be a part of the solution is to educate yourself. And we have to educate, you know, folks from the youth on up about what these things mean, because it's a lot. There is a lot, and we'll have to break it down to an understandable level of comprehension for not only for us, but for everybody.
Yeah, I was also going to build on that, if you don't mind, Mr. Allen. The policy and politics are intertwined, but they're kind of different at the same time. Like if we're having policy talks, that's one thing, but you got to play politics as well. Politics is getting out in the streets, getting out your message and taking ownership of that message. And that's what NatPAC 1947 has done. Like we're taking ownership of this message of what Black home ownership looks like. And that includes supporting the candidates that we want, supporting the initiatives that we want, but also, you know, we can operate separately and to say, you know, we can go into these battleground states and say, this is what is on the ballot, and, you know, make a reason, give people a reason to go out and vote. So,
yeah.
I have one thing also. It's important that the listeners know that we're bipartisan, right? So we are supporting those candidates who support the policies that benefit our communities. And so I think it's very important that you guys understand that for us, this is not about Democrat or Republican. This is about changing the home ownership rate in Black America. This is about closing the wealth gap and improving, getting policies that improves the communities that we all live in and serve. So I just wanted to address that because I think it's important that people understand that as a political action committee, we are bipartisan.
Yeah, and that was a great segue into my next topic. So, as most people know, and Stephanie teases me all the time, I had a previous occupation. That's all I'm gonna say, Stephanie. I had a previous occupation, and I can give you the statistics and the impact on low home ownership rate in the classroom. But that's what I want to talk about right now. I want us to talk about the impact of low home ownership rate to our communities. And I see God said straight up when I said that. God, do you want to kick this one off?
So the impact is, it just has am I still muted? Okay, I'm good. Okay. The impact of home ownership just has deep running roots, for years to come. Wealth, most of the wealth that is built comes from the equity in a person's home or land or dirt or whatever it is. Most of the wealth. And it used to be somebody had to die in order to get the insurance policies to distribute the wealth, to the family. We don't want to have to sit around and wait for somebody to die, for us to benefit. We can benefit now, but we have to understand that it's through home ownership and building of properties and ownership of properties that our wealth is distributed and is greater. He who controls the land, makes the rules. If you don't own any land, you can't make any rules because you don't have any money. He who has the gold makes the rules. Same thing. So when we look at our families, our futures, and the legacies that we're leaving behind, 50 years from now, those family members can benefit and our communities can benefit. So it has a long lasting impact. A property can stand, dirt's going to be here when we're gone. It's going to still be there. That land is still going to be there when we're all gone. So we know that that's black gold. We need to have that in our communities.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else want to weigh in on that one?
This one is, go ahead, James, you can go.
Sorry about that. I apologize. I was going to say, like, a lot of things is just intertwined. Health, education. You have property taxes fund schools. As you see with the COVID-19 crisis, you have families who can't really quarantine because they're living on top of one another. A lot of things are just intertwined, and the environmental effect, like where you are buying land now. Places are being flooded due to climate change, and you have all this other environmental effects as well. It affects the health and environment. So issues aren't siloed. Everything is interconnected, and so it starts with homeownership. So Miss Ty, sorry about that.
Yeah. I was just going to make a quick point that there was a period in time in our history some years ago at the very beginning of our country that only landowners could vote. And why was that only landowners could vote? Because they wanted to differentiate those with money being able to make the policy as opposed to those who didn't have money, didn't have a say. And so while those obviously policies and rules have changed and that is no longer the case, the fact still remains that when you have something tangible and you have equity in it, you have resources, that emboldens your voice within your community. And so we need to make it a point that our voices are heard loud and clear. We spend all this money trying to be cute, buying Gucci and Louis Vuitton and Mercedes, and that's great. I love all that stuff. But at the end of the day, that's not really getting us anywhere as far as moving us forward as a people, as far as us being taken seriously because our Black dollar is serious money. We're worried about giving our Black dollar to these designers. Let's worry about investing in ourselves as a people first.
Yeah. Look, Megan Thee Stallion said it's free to be real. So just for a piece of advice, I'm just going to go around quoting Megan because that's real talk right there.
Yes.
So what I know about the school system is students that are from homes where their parents have home ownership statistically do better in the classroom. And that's for many reasons. They don't have to move around. They're not moving around. There's consistency. There's pride in home ownership. So when an individual is renting, and regardless if you're renting $1,000 a month home or $7,000 a month home, there is still a chance that next year that landlord may decide not to renew the lease. So let's not mistake it and think that it's just because of low to moderate. Low to moderate has nothing to do with it. Ownership has everything to do with it. So when an individual decides to no longer renew your lease, now you're forced to move again. And if you can't locate a property equivalent to the one that you have in the same area, zoned to the same high school, that kid now has to move to a totally different school, start all over, make new friends, so on and so forth. I'm not saying that friends is the only thing that a student should be concerned with, but let's just be real. What else? They don't have a job to go to. So when you think about all of those things and how that contributes to their success in the classroom, how important is home ownership? And my answer is very. Now, how important is it for our audience to invest in their future through home ownership? Who's taking you?
I'll say something to that. I remember as a kid, we used to get our books in the classroom, and the books that we got were secondhand books from kids, of the other schools across town. They would write things in our books that were just very derogatory to the Black community. The N word was always scribbled through there. Tom Sawyer, everything was in there. It was always torn, tattered. Half the pages were missing. Just that one little piece right there just has been ingrained in my mind for as long as I can remember. And so I've always been a lover of books. I spent a lot of time reading, doing research. The communities that our schools are in, if they can afford to have a good place for people to come, kids to come and learn at a good environment, then they can not have to worry about where the next meal is coming from, and they can focus on the studies. If they're reading and they're not worried about what somebody scribbled in their book across town, then they can focus and they can learn better. But when they're just surrounded with all of these other outside sources, and down to the chairs that you're sitting in, you're getting splinters, those kind of things, then it just makes it that much more of a distraction. But we pay taxes just like everybody else. And most of the taxes that we pay come from, real estate taxes, income taxes. Our income taxes in a lot of cases are higher, depending on what it is that you do. If you can't write off stuff, if you don't have a house, you can't lower or decrease your taxes. So you end up spending or paying for the bulk of everything that goes across town to the other schools. So we're spending more of our time focusing and educating folks on how they can get home ownership and own properties, and then they have a voice in the communities, because those same communities that you live in are some of the communities that some of the other folks live in, whoever they are. And together, those community taxes help build schools, they help build better hospitals, they help provide services. It just makes it an all-around better environment for you. So it's a trickle-down effect. But overall, and I hope I'm not overcomplicating this, when you own a house, you're making a contribution to your community as well as your family.
Yeah. Okay.
So
anyone else?
I also think that God hit some things right on the head. But one of the things I recently saw, Tish, you probably can appreciate this, was from Martha Kasek Turner in their neighborhood, where they start talking about food deserts and things like that. And a lot, people relate some of that to the census, but I relate it to home ownership and the ability to let your politicians know by your voice, by way of the fact that you pay taxes in that neighborhood via property ownership. Because Tia said something very important. She talked about how in this country land ownership is valued, that in this country now, in this day and age, that we would even be talking about food deserts, where there's not a grocery store in a neighborhood to be able to get healthy food options for children, so that they are properly, able to eat and grow and get the right types of nutrients, and not the corner McDonald's or the other fast food options or the corner store, but actually having just a grocery store. So some of those things come with home ownership. And when they're building new communities now, what is one of the main things that they're looking for to make sure that people have access to is health? Is there a urgent care center around? Is there a grocery store around? Those things are all paramount. So home ownership also, in that retrospect, as far as what we need for our communities and for our children, just think about it now. We're still dealing with food deserts.
Yeah. Stephanie, do we have any questions from our audience?
We do not have any questions from our audience at this time.
Well, good deal. Did anybody have anything a message that they'd like to leave to our millennial audience about home ownership?
I have one quick point to just build on what Kimberly said. I think a lot of times as Black community members, we are a little hesitant to move out of the neighborhoods that we're comfortable in. And I think a lot of times we need to go ahead and take that step and move somewhere that we may not want to move. Maybe the property values are lower there. Maybe the homes are more affordable there. Maybe it's suburbia instead of living in the city. But a lot of these neighborhoods have access to good, healthy grocery stores like Whole Foods. They have access to community banks where you can go and get small entrepreneurial loans. They have gyms and urgent cares and hospitals nearby and doctors' offices nearby. And so I think as a community, we might need to take a risk and start going into some neighborhoods that we may not be 100% comfortable living in, just to give our children a better quality of life. And at times I feel like we want to hold out for, oh, I want to buy XYZ home, or, oh, I want to live in this neighborhood over there, so I'm just going to keep saving, which there's nothing wrong with that, but everybody has to buy the first starter home. Very few of us are able to move into the home that we want to live in and that we have dreamed of living in. That's a building block. We can't immediately move into the $800,000 home. Most of us have to start with the $250,000 fixer-upper and then sell it and sell it and sell it. And so as a community, I would just urge all of us to take the risk, move somewhere that you may not be 100% comfortable in. Maybe it's a little bit further outside of the city. Maybe it's not as close to the bus stop, but if you can get in the game, get some equity in under your belt, that will make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And
to the millennial audience, also protect your investment. I want to say protect your investment by making sure that you are politically involved. Because if you're going to make the investment in home ownership, you need to protect that investment. Make sure that the policies that are going forth are policies that will support your inheritance, because that's essentially what it is. The number one way to wealth in this country is real estate. you make that investment, then you've got to protect it. So again, natpac1947.com.
Yeah, I would like to also add, I know for a lot of my friends are in the millennial generation, gentrification is always something that comes up in conversation. Home ownership is one of those ways to stop that. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a third generation Washingtonian. We saw what DC became the chocolate city, and now it's no longer, right? And that because, you know, we had our grandparents that either passed away and the new generation sold the house and now moved out to a different location. And then we wonder what happened to our communities and why they've changed. And, you know, there's other communities that are like that, Brooklyn, Harlem, even parts of Philadelphia, starting to see a little bit of that, San Francisco, Oakland. You know, these communities happen because, you know, we didn't, I'm not charging it to the Black community, but I feel like there are still some elements where, you know, we didn't hold on to our ownership of these homes and these communities. And so one of that is to establish roots and keeping the house, keeping grandma's house, don't sell grandma's house and rent it out, you know, but at least you still have that ownership.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to leave you guys with a statement my mom used to make before my friends would come over when I was a little girl. She says, now you can have your little friends come over here, but don't let me catch you jumping on your bed and acting a fool in that room. Because if you show that you don't value the things that you have, then they won't value it either. And that speaks volumes, and it can mean so many different things. So if we want to talk about our community, start treating it like it's your community. And when someone else treats it like it's theirs, don't get mad,
Right.
because you had the opportunity first. Guys, this has been amazing. I know I love Super Series Tuesday, but we unfortunately have an announcement, Stephanie. Do you want to?
Well, all good things must come to an end. And Super Series Tuesday, this particular series has ended. Today is our last show for this series. However, we are still going to be bringing some good information to you guys, and it's going to be on Wisdom Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so we're going to have 6 episodes on Wisdom Wednesday with LaTanya Donaldson of Prime Lending for 3 episodes in November and 3 in December. Housed in the Car is going on a planning break. Housed in the Car will be on break until 2021, but don't be afraid. Go ahead.
Hold on.
Oh,
Super Series
sorry.
Tuesday will be on a break, but we do still have Homeownership Changed My Life, and we still have Millennial Talk Tuesday through November. So in December, we will be on a break for that as well.
And then we'll pick back up in 2021. We are going to have a wonderful planning happy hour this Friday. James is on that planning happy hour, myself and Stephanie, and guys, we're looking forward
That's
to
our birthday finale.
It's our birthday finale. We're looking forward to what we have to share with you in 2021. I am definitely going to miss the audience, but I am looking forward to that 2021 set of Super Series, and we'll be launching 2021 with Super Series 5. So that's going to be very exciting. But stay tuned. On Tuesday, you still have Homeownership Changed My Life in through November and Millennial Talk Tuesday. And there you get to hear the reasons or the barriers preventing millennials from homeownership. And then you get to hear the success stories or the testimonies from our millennials. But be sure to join us, and details will follow with the information for Wisdom Wednesday. Guys, you want to close us out?
Well, I do want to say one thing to the realtors who are watching. Realtors, stay tuned and keep involved with what's going on with Housed in the Car, because you may have an opportunity in 2021 to showcase your services in our shows, Homeownership Changed My Life and Millennial Talk Tuesday. So we will be in talks in our planning meeting about those opportunities for you guys as well. So please, guys, realtors, stay tuned so you guys can be a part of Housed in the Car.
Now we're acting like our grandmothers. We keep saying something when we say bye. Here's the I thought you were gonna thank everyone for their support. It's like when you're backing out the driveway and she keeps saying bye. Grandma, Mama, you said it 3 times already. But
that's my daddy too. I literally say, okay, bye.
But we definitely want to thank you guys for your support throughout this year, this 1 year, and I'm sure NAPAC can say the same thing. Realtors, thank you so very much for your support. It has been phenomenal. It's been a whirlwind. Our national president, and I'm scratching the back of my neck because he is filled with ideas and and things that he wants to bring to each and every last one of you. We're just grateful that we've had the ability to fulfill that during this year.
And we appreciate all of what you're doing. Thank you, Letitia and Stephanie. You guys, this was a great project. The group that you presented to, Letitia, they're still talking about you and what you did when you did the presentation. These are youth, 19 to 25. They love it. You're doing a wonderful work. You may not get the immediate gratification for it, but believe me, you have helped a lot of people.
you. We appreciate that, guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so very much.
All right.
Kudos.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to Super Series Tuesday. Tune in next Tuesday for our series Homeownership Changed My Life and Millennial Talk Tuesday. I'm not sure which one we're going to air next week, but tune in. It's going to be at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.